Birdie Brand's all-natural bug deterrent is the best in the game of golf. It keeps the bugs away while giving you a bit of focus for those tight moments as the match comes to a close. Tour tested, tour approved. The 1-ounce bottle fits in any golf bag or travel case. When the match is on the line, your focus and comfort are things you don't want to be thinking about. Use Birdie Brands to make sure that doesn't happen. Birdie Brands, game on, bugs gone. Get yours at birdiebrands.com today. My side of the bag, Drew Hinsley. He's Scotty Worldwide.
Hey,
It is amateur golf season, Scotty.
let's go. I love me. I love the amateur game.
We both love the amateur game. As professional caddies, we do a lot of scoreboard watching. We are talking to coaches. We're talking to agents. Sometimes we're talking directly to the players, both on the men's and women's side of these things. So you and I have a lot of personal investment into a lot of this. And for the next couple of weeks, amateur golf really does kind of hit its peak of the year. Women's amateur currently happening at Bandon Dunes.
Yes.
Men's amateur will happen next week at Olympic Club in San Francisco. And then the first couple of days of September, the Walker Cup is contested at Cypress Point Golf Club. So amateur golf front and center for this episode of My Side of the Bag. And we're looking at the current leaderboard right now at the U.S. Women's Open. And Riane Malaxi, last year's champion is your tied for first leader right now after one round at Bandon. We got Anna Davis at 3 under. She's now an Auburn Tiger. So a lot of folks in the Southeastern Conference paying attention to her and talking about this region of the world. Everybody in the ACC is familiar with Carolina Lopez Chacara. She's 2 shots off the lead in a tie for 12. So we in the current number one amateur in the world, Kira Romero, 3 shots off the lead in a tie for 27th. So a lot to watch this weekend at Bandon Dunes. A couple of USC Trojans got a little work to do today, don't they?
They do. They do. I mean, I think Jasmine's in a fine spot right now. I know. But yeah, need a good day from Catherine Park. I know Justin, the USC head coach, is on the bag for Catherine out there at Bandon. But yeah, you named a couple. I have a special bond with Miss Malixi because when she won the U.S. Girls last year, she did it at a little golf course called El Caballero. So
El Caballero,
right next to not only Ingrid's picture, but also the GOAT's picture, Miss Annika Sorenstam. Her picture resides on that wall of champions at El Cab. So
is your picture on the wall there?
My picture's not on the not yet. Maybe one day, Drew.
Okay.
But yeah, to see her have a great round at Bandon to start off was wonderful. Like you said, Kira Romero's playing good. Astrid Talley's playing good. Astrid Talley obviously won the Girls Junior Invitational before. Defeated Lottie Woad in the Curtis Cup last year in individuals. So someone who's not afraid to be on that big stage. So it'd be fun to watch. Definitely future stars, a lot of LPGA stars that are coming that are on that list. Someone you didn't name who we played with at the U.S. Open, Farrah O'Keefe out of Texas, I think has a lot of game. Needs a good day today to get into match play. Obviously, you got to be T64 or better to play match play. But she's got someone that's a lot. She has someone with a lot of game, and I was very impressed watching her play Erin Hills with her dad on the bag. And then Giamana Clemente, even younger girl who we've seen quite a bit already. She takes the game very, very serious, has a great coach in Jorge Parada, who teaches quite a few of the women out there. I expect a big week for her. So will be fun to watch. And Bandon on TV should be awesome to watch match play coming down the stretch this weekend.
Well, I remember when they held the men's amateur, I thought the same thing. I thought it would be great. The only problem with a property like Bandon, across on television is you lose a lot of your you lose a lot of the contrast. The holes kind of run together.
Okay.
And after a while, it kind of looks the same. A place like a Royal Porthcawl where you just were abandoned dunes, even links courses like St. Andrews, Turnberry, Carnoustie, unless you're actually there to experience the slopes and the scale and the way the holes move, and it's really more of an experience within the variables of wind and weather. That's what really gives those holes their character. None of that comes across on TV. So I'm always interested to see if they change things from one event to the next, if they put up a scoreboard to give the viewer an idea. This is where this hole ends. This is where this hole begins. Bandon doesn't come across great on TV, but I've never heard one person go there that says a bad thing about it.
Interesting. Yeah,
but I don't know if it translates to television.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And obviously
television flattens everything out. So when you get that flat landscape with a flat medium like television, I don't know if it looks as good as it should.
Very understandable. And folks, that's coming from a broadcast professional, Mr. Hinsley himself there. So take that with all that it bears. But yeah, no, nonetheless, again, I mean, this list of players we named is littered with future professional talent. So
and tied with Rian at the top is Julia Messimer from Overland Park, Kansas, 4 under in her first round. And real quick, one note on O'Keefe at Texas. Her coach, Laura Eleno, I think is the best women's coach in NCAA golf. She's in my phone as Laura Myerscough because I met her 20 some odd years ago as Laura Myerscough. And she's always Laura. She's always Laura Myerscough just because I know her brother, I know her dad, and that's the Myerscough family. And I think they all understand that that's how they're programmed into my telephone. But I think
I'm telling Coach D, you say some of this stuff out here.
Well, listen, Coach D at Oregon is basically her star pupil, but she's still the master, right? The master hasn't. She may have taught him everything he knows, but she didn't teach him everything she knows. If that makes any sense.
Hey, listen. I feel like Coach D might wind up back in the SEC before it's all over. Let's just say that.
And I don't have this researched in my head right now. Did Coach D beat Laura this year in NCAA's in match play, or did they? I felt like Oregon advanced beyond Texas. I'm not sure if Oregon knocked Texas out. I feel like they matched up somewhere, and it wouldn't be within conference anymore. But
yeah, I don't know. I was there for qualifying play one day, but I don't know.
We'll have to look back at that and revisit that. I felt like Coach D might have gotten the best out of Laura this year in match play.
Maybe.
Maybe I stand corrected on some business that happened this year at NCAA's, but I know both coaches. And again, if you want to call them 1A, 1B, but I still think Laura is the best in NCAA women's golf. So
there you go.
And that's kind of what this podcast is about: is the amateur game, also the college game. It's just come so far from where it was even 10 years ago. I don't know about you, but I feel like these kids, we have Lottie Woad coming on the scene straight out of Florida State, Augusta National Women's Amateur, and then she wins her first pro event at the Women's Scottish Open. We've got guys coming out on the PGA Tour like Luke Clanton, also from Florida State. You know, for a period of time there, about a year, the Seminoles at Florida State had the #1 women's amateur, #1 men's amateur on campus.
And the #2 women's amateur in Mirabelle team.
Right. So, again, an embarrassment of riches down there in Tallahassee. Now both are professionals, one on the PGA Tour, one on the LPGA. But these kids are coming out better prepared. And I attribute that just to the ability to grab information, the ability to train at the highest level so much earlier in life, train sports specific. As far as golf, these kids, you know, with the information age, they all have phones, but they can all go to camps and they can all, you know, do stuff and learn stuff from each other as far as best practices so much earlier in life. And you're looking at a whole generation of kids that are going to come out. And, we've talked about this before. Be careful, kids. Not everybody's going to turn pro and be a Colin Morikawa or
Yeah,
be a Matt Wolff or be a Lottie Woad or be a Rose Zhang. There is a maturation process for the masses.
yeah,
These outliers come out and set a standard that everybody thinks they should be attaining. There's a reason why they're the outliers, because you're not supposed to walk out on tour and win. That's
correct,
just not
correct.
what normally happens,
And
but we're seeing it a little more often.
and Minji Lee talked about this in one of her press conferences. I think it was at Evian. How good the young talent is this day versus 5-6 years ago, when the young talent that came out here was just not ready to compete. And now she's, with the Lotties, with the Roses, with the Ingrids, like these girls are ready to win as soon as they step foot in their first tournament. And so, that's a change that Minji's talked about. But yeah, 100% right. Stay in school, kids, because it's really, really hard once you get out here, man. It is really, really hard.
Well, Ben Crenshaw won his first professional event, and that was in I think the early 1980s, 82, 83, something like that, maybe earlier. But he won his first pro event. And then the next highest finish in their pro debut was right here. This bib right here, the RBC Heritage,
Okay.
Bryson's first professional event. He tied for fourth in 2016. So it shows you the gap of pro debuts and a large measure of success in that professional debut. And then this was eclipsed later that same year by Jon Rahm. The week after the U.S. Open at Tiger's event at Congressional, he finished tied for third. And I feel like these two guys, Bryson and Jon, have kind of been the trailblazers, and now this whole generation of kids comes in behind them expecting the same kind of success. And there actually are enough talented kids, I'd say every 2 to 3 years, maybe one or two of them, that can actually accomplish those feats. And we're kind of seeing it play out as that.
I'll say this. This is my 6th year caddying on the LPGA. So 2023 would have been my 3rd year that I caddied for Ingrid in the British Open. And when I walked onto the driving range and met her for the very first time, I just knew, ball striking wise, she was more talented than half the people there. And that's 2.5 years ago. So to your point, like the top kids are just ready to go. They have things like TrackMan. They spend more time on Decade Golf, knowing how to attack a golf course and score on a golf course. And so all of the information, as you said, all of the online tools, all of the good instruction, all of the technology, all the good equipment, and knowing what you need, it's all there, and they have it when they're 14, 15 years old. And so there's no reason why the best in the world can't compete. Now, it's still really, really hard because you're still trying to beat Nelly Korda every week. You're still trying to beat Gino every week. So,
well, and you mentioned Decade, and let's give Scott Fawcett the credit that he deserves. He really has revolutionized the game using Mark Brody's strokes gain system of approaching golf, approaching strategy, approaching holes. He's even got a new phrase now called fractional bogeys, and I would even add fractional birdies to that. Okay. This is a hole that, if we make a bogey here, we're only losing 0.3 of a shot to the field. So if we can make a fractional birdie down the road at a pretty easy hole, then we're going to net out pretty even strokes gain there. So don't freak out about that bogey. And that's a big part of Decade, is no doubles and the Tiger 5 and all that. And these kids are learning it at such a young age.
Drew, do you think, though, with all the information, do you think for certain players it can be too much? And do you think that some players will get lost in that and kind of lose their way when they should just play golf?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a great story about working with Bryson. We were in a practice round with Bryson and Phil versus Dustin and Keegan.
Mm-hmm.
And Bryson and Phil were having a conversation and the whole practice round and really digging deep and just nerding out, almost trying to impress each other with the depth of their knowledge and the length of their words. And Dustin came over at one point and just kind of elbowed me and said, 5 more seconds of this, I won't break 100. So, yes, there are definitely two different ways. That's not saying Dustin doesn't have intelligence, but
Right.
he doesn't need to analyze it the same way that Bryson and Phil need to analyze it. Dustin gets a certain amount of information, and then the rest of it is just go and be an athlete. And obviously, he found massive success with that. And people forget just how recently he was having all that massive success to this day, by the way. To this day, Dustin still has more wins in the FedEx Cup playoffs than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean,
So he was a really good player for a really long time. Going to live maybe hurt his competitiveness, but he was still a generational talent. Unfortunately, we may be saying more of that in the past tense than the present tense, which is a little bit unfortunate for golf fans. But Dustin certainly a major champion, two-time major champion, Masters winner, and a U.S. Open winner at Oakmont. But he had a different way of doing it than Bryson and Phil. And it wasn't all about info. And some players, it is a paralysis by analysis. And some players just kind of need to point and shoot more. And I've had players tell me, because I've worked for guys like Bryson who want you while he's over the ball to continue to give him numbers, because that's how he paints the picture in his brain. And, the first time players like Rory or Xander, guys like that, hear his process live standing next to the caddy, you kind of say something to Bryson while he's over the ball, and you look at those guys and their eyes are this big, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're actually speaking to him right now, and that he's asking for information while he's already walked into the shot. It's a little bit different. And then there's players that I've had, they've been like, hey, let's just give me this number, and if I ask anything else, you're like, yeah, I can certainly, yeah. Working for Bryson, obviously, I know how to develop every number you could think of. But some players I had actually an old school guy. He's actually aged out of the Champions Tour, Robert Gomez. He didn't even want to know what it was to the hole. He would stand there, let me do all the math, all the analysis, and then he'd say, what is it playing? That is the only number he wanted in his head. If it was 146, that didn't matter to him. If it was playing 155, that's what mattered to him. And he would never yell at you about a bad number, or, maybe he didn't quite execute the way it was supposed to be executed, but all he cared about was the shot he was going to hit. And it was usually at a flagstick. Very old school, one number, tell it to me, and I'll hit that number. And so I've gone from this end of the spectrum to that end of the spectrum, and I've tried to land just about everywhere in between with other players. But yeah, sometimes the information, and again, it's almost like film study with football players. You can watch the film. I think Ray Lewis and Peyton Manning were legends for the way they would watch film. And a friend of mine, Ed Reed, also great at dissecting film and just kind of being able to walk out on the field and see what happens. But there still is the element of being able to react in person. And seeing it from a camera up in the bird's eye view of the stadium is completely different than that field view. And I know a lot of fans enjoy the kind of the video game cam that goes behind quarterbacks during football games, because it gives you a little bit different view of the splits of the linemen and the windows to run routes and the way the defenders can kind of fill alleys. And in golf, it's a lot of the same. I can give you 150, but until you're standing there on the 12th tee at Augusta, you don't really know what that feels or looks like.
Sure.
And when your hand's shaking a little, and you can have all the information in the world, but at the end of the day, it comes down to executing a shot. And a lot of players, they don't really need to know the yardage. They need to know in their mind how they're going to execute that shot. And that comes from more repetition than film study.
Gotcha. All right, Jeff. Who is the U.S. Women's AM champion at Bandon this week? Who's your pick?
I mean, it's the hardest tournament in the world to predict a winner because you go from stroke to match play.
Correct.
And, you're in Oregon. You got the number one amateur in the world, Kira Ramiro, who's in good position. Her sister, Kalia Ramiro, not in as good position, might miss match play.
Yep.
And at that point, I bet there's going to be a little switcheroo, and Kalia will come in and loop for Kira. And we've heard stories like this before. And actually, at Bandon, two very close friends who were both players, but one had an injury, Carl Phillips, caddied for his best friend, Michael Thorbjornsson, and they made a deep run into that U.S. Amateur. So I'm going to go with that storyline,
Okay.
the sisters teaming up in match play and making a run at the U.S. Amateur title, the number one amateur in the world, confirming her new ranking with the Amateur Championship. How about you? Who's your pick?
I think this player has seen a lot of players come after her. She saw Rose. She's seen my boss. She's seen Lottie. But we forget she is the OG original Augusta champion. I'm taking the lefty, and I'm taking the Auburn Tiger, Anna Davis, to get it done. I think she sat back and she's watched a lot of these young amateurs come and get to the professional game and do something. She's very good friends with Alexa Pano, who I know quite well. I think she wants to make a statement about that she's not left and she hasn't lost any ground in the women's amateur game. And so I'll take Anna Davis.
Okay. Well, and that kind of leads us into this discussion about the men's amateur, because we just had the top two amateurs in the world, both in school in Tallahassee, Florida at the same time.
Yeah.
You bring up Anna Davis, who's on campus not too far from here at the Plains in Auburn, Alabama. And they have the new men's world number one amateur in the world ranking in Jackson Koiven, who just finished up a pretty impressive run as an amateur, getting some sponsor invites on the PGA Tour. T11,
Yep.
T6,
Yep.
and fifth place at the Wyndham. And he finished the Wyndham by pouring in a really slick downhill putt. You had to kind of feed it right into the right little trough. And if you got it there, it was going all the way to the hole. And he finishes with a birdie in his final hole this year on the PGA Tour, and now gets ready to go play the USAM at Olympic Club. And if we're looking at the men's game, going to San Francisco, playing a golf course that I think is one of the hardest venues to play, because it asks so much of you within your game. And it's also such a test of your patience. There's so many fairways that turn left and the fairway cants to the right and the other way around. And then there's some overhanging trees that may influence your ball flight. If you're a drawer of the ball, there's a couple of overhanging trees down the right of a couple of holes don't allow you to do that. So you're going to play against your shot shape at times. There's a really short par four in the seventh hole that can really cause some problems if you hit a wayward tee shot. Great par threes, couple of one long one short one on the back nine, and then two consecutive par fives, 16, 17. 16 can be as long as they want it to be, 600 and something yards. But we all remember when they moved the tee way, way forward back in 2012, I think it was, when Webb Simpson won the U.S. Open. And it was Jim Furyk who just couldn't get comfortable in that tee box and sniped one left, made a big score, cost him his second U.S. Open championship. And then 17, a little bit shorter hole, but for right-handers, the ball's always below your feet in the fairway. And so it's just a really, really uncomfortable shot. And then you finish with the short 18th hole, less than driver. You could even hit a 5-iron off that tee, still have a wedge in your hand. But as we know, a severely pitched green back to front. One of the biggest U.S. Open controversies. 2 U.S. Open controversies happened on that same hole in the same U.S. Open. Do you know what they are?
No.
They got a little aggressive with a hole location one day. Ball wouldn't stop rolling. Kirk Triplett, I believe, John Daly were all involved. Even Payne Stewart was involved in the ball just running too far away. The ball would almost stop at the hole, and then it would continue to trickle 20 feet away. And then later in the tournament, Lee Janzen ends up winning the U.S. Open because Payne Stewart drove it into a divot in the middle of the 18th fairway.
Ooh.
So 2 big U.S. Open controversies that I still remember to this day. Both happened on the 18th hole at Olympic Club. So
Yeah.
also where
let's
Bo
not forget.
Hostler came on the scene in the U.S. Open, the amateur there.
Correct. Yeah, and a young Lucy Lee, first name, and she just wanted some ice cream. And let's also not forget the heartbreak that Lexi had down the stretch in 2020. Oh no, sorry, 2021.
Olympic Club known as the Graveyard of Champions.
So yeah, and a young Yuka Sasso was crowned champion there. So yeah, no, to your point, but let's back up. Let's talk about JK, the number one amateur. Obviously, I know you have a personal relationship with the coaching staff and people very close to those Auburn Tigers. Well, as a Georgia fan, I wouldn't really show that. But anyway, I know you're close to the program and someone that helps them out almost every year. Knows this kid, JK, pretty well. The real deal, like you said, is a couple of finishes. Really, I think the U.S. Am's the only amateur event he's playing. I think the rest are just going to be PGA Tour events.
Yeah.
And then we'll get to watch him in the Walker Cup. Some other, I think, cool names here. Ethan Fang, who's already been named to that Cup team for the Walker Cup team. Ben James, Preston Stout, who I have really big expectations for at Oklahoma State. So I'm looking forward to a really, really good amateur. And like you said, Olympic Club always usually gives us a little bit of drama and gives us what we want watching the back nine on Sunday. So we'll really look forward to that. And what a cool venue. I think one of the West Coast iconic venues, Olympic Club, just because of the finish. It is so tough. Like you said, you can't get an even lie. All the fairways slope the opposite way that you're trying to hit the ball. And if they grow the rough up, it could be very, very penal next week over at Olympic Club.
Yeah, and back to the Koiven and Auburn, I did have a chance to get to meet him and the rest of his teammates. Shout out to his teammate Carson Baca, who won on PGA Tour Americas in Canada on Sunday. Brandon Valdez, who's getting a couple of PGA Tour starts, has his Korn Ferry status after finishing runner-up to David Ford in PGA Tour U. Then you have Jackson, who's already earned a card through the accelerated program. Another guy who's going to be coming out, a kid named Josiah Gilbert, same class as Koiven, so don't know if he'll play 1 or 2 more years in college, but I think he's like a Mark Leishman-esque type player. He's from Australia. That's why I draw that comparison. Powerful kid, not as tall as Mark, but might be more powerful than him. Big tree trunks for legs. And I've had a chance to be around a lot of amateurs in their amateur career. Bryson's one of them. John Rahm's another. William Mao, I had a chance to meet. Austin Greaser, now this Koiven kid. Also met a junior out of Texas named Scheffler when he came through the East Lake Cup a few years ago. Met a kid out of Oklahoma State named Victor Hovland, kid out of LSU named Sam Burns. Koiven is right in that same mold with all these kids, not just in pedigree, but in personality. He's very laid back, very quiet, almost introverted, I would say. At least he's one of those who keeps his walls up pretty high until you really get to know him. And I think it's very similar to Scotty. He's going to try to stay very even keel on the golf course. I think I saw a fist pump when he made the birdie on 18 at Wyndham, and that's about as emotional as you see him get in a positive way. And he also doesn't go to negative town too often either. But very special kid, very consistent, which if you're a young amateur player, you just want to find the one shot that you can hit over and over and over again. And Jackson has something in his swing that probably most coaches wouldn't teach. He's kind of shut at address and shut at the top, but he finds a way to square it up or hit that cut as he's cutting across it every single time. He's very consistent, and he has a really good feel with his putter. And if you're a young player and you can putt, you're going to be able to ascend up any rankings. So that's my scout on Jackson Koiven. Somebody who knows him very well, who I used to work for, Blaine Barber, says he's the best putter he's ever seen. I think that's incredibly high praise from somebody who's played on the PGA Tour at the highest level. So we'll see if he lives up to that. So far, so good with his results. I mean, finishing 5th in a full field PGA Tour event where a lot of guys are fighting for their playoff lives. And there was a scenario that didn't play out, but it was possible for a while on Sunday, where Mark Hubbard was tied for second and he had his card or he had his top 70 to get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And had it been a three-way tie for second, he wouldn't have gotten enough points.
Interesting.
And had a couple other guys not vaulted ahead and taken that second place away from Mark, it would have been Jackson's birdie on 18 that would have kept him out of the playoffs. That's how good this amateur is playing, where he's affecting job statuses for card carrying PGA Tour members. Like that, it's hard for maybe the average person to understand the type of level of golf that is. These guys are fighting and clawing for their careers. And you got this amateur who finished fifth. Only 4 guys beat him all week long. So he can handle the heat. That's a very stressful week just to be in the field as an amateur, because you don't have anything to lose. You only have things to gain. But there are guys in the locker room and in the parking lot that are losing it, sometimes emotionally, because they've lost their job. And for some guys, it's the end of the road, and he's able to kind of navigate through all that. And he witnessed some of that. He played with some guys that were on the bubble, and he was still able to play his game and kind of have his blinders on. That's a huge sign of success in the future.
Drew, so we have a lot of caddies that obviously watch and listen to this. So someone like a Kiara Romero, a Jasmine Koo, a Lottie Woad, a Jackson Koivin, a David Ford for that matter. If you're a caddy and you get one of those jobs, you've obviously have done it with quite a few of those young people. You named Bryson and William Mao. What's do you think they look for in a caddy that they're going to eventually have to hire? I mean, you mentioned Lottie went and got Dermot. Rose has Ollie. Ingrid, I don't know why she chose some crazy kid from LA, but she's got one, right? So what do you being around that, and I think it translates both to the men and women's game, as a caddy with a lot of young talent there, like what do you think they can offer more than anything?
The one thing I've been told the most why I get certain jobs is just positivity and energy and passion to do the job. And again, I think it also sometimes does just kind of come down to right place, right time.
For sure.
I know I've gotten a couple of jobs just because I've been in certain places. And so I tell caddies, now that reach out to me, how they want to get started. Go work the AM events. Go work the U.S. Amateur Olympic Club if you can. Find out where the 2026 U.S. Amateur is, both for the men and the women, and go work those and get tournament reps. Go work your state open, club championship at your club if you're a club caddy. That's great experience. Just trying to assess your own performance, much less the member. Yeah, you're dealing with a 14 handicap who's maybe swinging outside his weight a little bit, but that's still great experience for maybe having a Jackson Koivin who's in the hunt as an amateur at the PGA Tour event. David Flynn, who's on the bag for Jackson Koivin, I'm sure has been using some of the lessons he's learned along the way at all levels to help calm himself, calm Jackson, give him positive thoughts as he's coming down the stretch. But yeah, go work your amateur events because they want experience. They want enthusiasm. They want positivity. Every golfer, as we know, can be very hard on themselves. So they don't need a caddy that's going to live and die with every shot. They want a caddy that's going to, even when the writing's on the wall, they still want a caddy to go, hey, let's keep going. We're not done here. We got some work to do. Let's go. Let's turn this around. A little bit of rah-rah as a coach would do, maybe encouraging, hey, let's get this ball moving down the field, or hey, we can hit this pitcher, even though he struck out the last 9 guys.
Sure.
You're always trying to encourage. You're always trying to pump up. And if you get too emotional and you go up and down, you're probably not going to hang on to that job very often. You've got to be very even keel. You look at the top guys. You look at the Dermots. You look at the Ted Scotts. You look at Joe Scovrin. You look at the Terry McNamara's. They're like this every day of the week, right? Every day of the week. Monday, they're the same as Sunday afternoon. And there's a lot to that. And they are competitive people. Some of the most I've ever met in my life. That's why, look at Steve Williams. He's a very competitive guy, but he tries to be as even as he can. Now, there is a bit of a bulldog that some of these guys have in them. Steve famously throwing a camera in a lake, somebody that got in Tiger's backswing. But when it comes to dealing with their player, they're very even keel and very consistent. And there's so many guys that the guy that's impressed me the most lately is Shea Knight with Victor Hovland because they go through a lot. There is a lot of conversation before shots, and Shea is consistent. He gives his opinion. Victor doesn't always agree with what Shea says, but Shea gives his opinion. But once Victor makes his decision, Shea is very positive, very calm, very comforting, very target focused, and then gets out of the way. And so if you're a young caddy looking what to do, you want to be positive all the time, no matter what the scoreboard says, no matter how the player's treating you. And that may be the hardest thing, is to not take that personally. I know I would probably be one of the hardest people in the world to caddy for because I'm so hard on myself. I don't hold anybody else to the standard I hold myself, but I'm really hard on myself and I'm mean to myself.
Yeah.
So for you to step in there and try to get in between me and me having a conversation, that's going to be really hard. And that might be difficult to do. And I've had to do that with some of these players I've had. And I've told players, told this guy right here, if a fan came from outside those ropes and said to you the things that you're saying right now, I'd be forced to do something. Trying just to get them to change their mindset. And at times it works, at times it backfires. And then they get mad at you and they don't want to hear anything else you have to say. So you have to learn from all that. But if you're a young caddy, yeah, positivity is probably the most appealing trait. Energy
Agreed.
and positivity, and energy without being nervous energy. Does that make sense?
Agreed. And listen, I had so last year I went through a couple different different players, but one of the players that I worked with was Heiji Kang, and we got paired with IK Kim at Dow. And IK was very complimentary of me, and I said, "Well, why?" I said, what we impressed you?" And she said, "You just never reacted to anything, good or bad." So,
Well,
I'd
and a bad habit I used to have, and if you're listening, you're a young caddy, don't do this. In my head, whenever a shot lands, I say, okay, on to the next. Well, I had a bad habit for a while of saying it out loud. And it would land in a bunker. I go, okay, okay. And finally, a player said, "It's not okay. Would you shut up?" And I realized that that was my inside voice coming out. So in my head, that's my own little mental reset. Okay, it's there. Let's go deal with this shot. It's not that, okay, it's fine. It's okay, new shot. Let's
yeah.
go. And from
that's
that,
how you went on to the next shot by
right.
processing.
And
Okay, yeah,
I kind of, the last shot's over, and now from this point in space forward, all we're doing is focusing on variables and how we get this shot close. That was basically my Control Alt Delete button was okay.
yeah.
And I had a player just didn't like hearing that. So careful that that inside voice doesn't sneak outside sometimes if you're a young caddy. It's okay to say whatever you want in your head, but there are certain things you need to kind of sterilize within the environment. And maybe being positive in a negative situation is not what your player wants to hear.
Amen.
So, little insight from us from some of the lessons we've learned along the way. I will tell you an interesting note. I'm looking at the men's amateur ranking right now.
Yes.
And 7 of the top 10 amateurs in the world are American. So I think the odds makers would tell you there's a chance an American can win the U.S. Amateur at Olympic Club, which we didn't have last year with Jose Ballesteros, first Spaniard to win. So we'll see if maybe the Americans can turn that trend back around. Michael Lasasso, your NCAA champion from Ole Miss, who will be at East Lake later this year. He is 7th in the world rankings. So we'll see if he can give Mr. Koiven, Mr. Ben James, and Mr. Ethan Fang, the top 3 amateurs, a run for their money in San Francisco. And then an embarrassment of riches for all of those highly ranked American men. They get to go play the Walker Cup at my favorite place on the planet, Cypress Point. Oh, my gosh. That's my favorite place. My friend Casey Reamer is the pro there, and he's been kind enough to sneak me out on that golf course a couple of times, and I enjoy every second that I'm out there. It is such a cool place. And again, the fact that, I grew up at East Lake revering Bobby Jones, and Bobby Jones playing Cypress Point is why he hired Dr. Alistair McKenzie to design Augusta National. Obviously, I have a lot of ties within my entire life to that place. So I will be thrilled to watch it on television and see that come across my screen in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, so cool. And, to be in the fairways, like they kind of just let people walk in the fairways, and how they're going to let people out Cypress. Like, what a treat that's going to be most people in the world will never get behind those gates and be able to see Cypress. The fact that we're going to now only get to see it on TV, but people are going to be able to walk in those fairways, amazing.
Well, they did sell tickets. So they are going to try to limit the traffic because 17 Mile Drive does go through the property. You have to cross it a couple of times as you play the course. So there is public access to the property, but it's such a remote place for the general public that I don't think they'll have a huge problem. But they do want to limit the amount of people because it is, for what we're used to in big time golf, it's a thumbprint of a golf course. It's just jammed right there on the peninsula there. And so, again, not a lot of room to roam in between fairways. A lot of fairways are right next to each other. A lot of tees and greens right next to each other. It's meant to be walked, obviously. So, really, really fun. I can't wait to see the Walker Cup at Cypress. And if you're listening, you happen to be there, go tell my buddy Casey Reamer that I said hello. I would love to be there, but and I had a chance because NBC is going to cover some of it, and I had a chance to sign up for that event, but man, it comes in the middle of a very busy stretch for me, and so I had to say no to the Walker Cup at Cypress. I know that was a tough one to turn down. I know I'm starting to feel worse and worse about that the closer it draws to us, because man, I want to be there.
Oh, that's tough. But hey, listen, got to do what you got to do, and it will be a good event, and looking forward to it. We don't have the final teams yet. Obviously, they get selected after the amateur. We do know Koiven will be on it, Michael will be on it, Preston Stout will be on it, Ethan will be on it, but they'll wait.
Tyler Weaver, top-ranked Englishman, he'll be on it. So, and then you have to go a ways to find some other Europeans. Luke Poulter,
yes,
Ian's son, will be on the team. So another thing to look at. So, but amateur golf amateur golf's in a good place, isn't it, Scotty?
Yeah, it's pretty good. But it's pretty good right now. And next 2 weeks to really get appreciation for amateur golf, both West Coast. Let's represent not only at Olympic, but also then staying out west for the Walker Cup. Let's go, Cali.
Well, and then the women playing at Bandon. So 3 weeks on the West Coast for amateur golf. I mean, golly, East Coast is the best coast, but I guess we'll have to settle for watching the second best coast this month.
Hey, listen, it is what it is, but it's 70 and beautiful. I know it'll be 75 and beautiful. I'll say that.
It is pouring here in Georgia right now, so I think I'd like to be on the West Coast.
That's all I need. Well, listen, it can be a little cold out there at Cypress when you're on the minaret, then you're on the peninsula there. You can get some cold mornings.
Yeah, but your heart is thumping so much and your blood is flowing, you don't feel any of that marine layer at all.
Plus you just go get some good cheese and some good food in Carmel, and you're fine.
And go visit my friend Ken Torrey in the cheese shop in Carmel if you're there. If you're into cheese and wine, then Ken is your guy. Ken went to high school with Barack Obama, strangely enough. Yeah, I met Ken on a flight from the Monterey airport to San Francisco, short flight. But this was, 10, 15 years ago. We sat next to each other on the plane, and we've been friends ever since. And anytime I'm there, I go by the cheese shop. And Stuart Sink says it's the best cheese shop in the world. So the cheese shop in Carmel, if you're out there for the USAM, go give Ken Torrey a visit and tell him I said hello. So that's it for this episode. Amateur golf in a good place. Keep listening to us, share, comment. We will respond to you guys, and we'll keep giving you the world of golf from my side of the bag.
Birdie Brand's all-natural bug deterrent is the best in the game of golf. It keeps the bugs away while giving you a bit of focus for those tight moments as the match comes to a close. Tour-tested, tour-approved, the 1-ounce bottle fits in any golf bag or travel case. when the match is on the line and your focus and comfort are things you don't want to be thinking about out there on the course. Use Birdie Brands to make sure that doesn't happen to you. Birdie Brands, game on, bugs gone. Get yours at birdiebrands.com today.